Good morning. Hey, real mamas, how you doing, hon? Um, I guess we've had a little rough night tonight, last night, and this morning. And the first thing I want to say is, um, rest easy, Lady P. I am really, really, really sad about her passing. She was a young lady who, despite all of her challenges, her health challenges, she hung in there and she fought. And um, COVID and his little siblings and children is nothing to play with. The fact that she was able to fight so hard despite her, other underlying conditions says a lot about her. And it says a lot about her how she continued to live her life despite having health challenges. I really admired her for that. I respected her for that. She was a sweet person and she will be greatly missed. And we can only remember her. And, I think that it just got to be so much that the good Lord just says, you suffered enough. Come on home. So we know where she is. Now, I want you all to do something for her. All those people making negative videos, even if you give a dislike, it's still interacting. Don't give them anything, not a like, a dislike, a comment, or anything like that. Do that for her. Ignore them. Because what my grandmother told me a long time ago when I was quite young is she said it, and the way she said it, it just stuck with me. She said, it's bad luck to speak ill of the dead. That's all she said. So let them go on, their karma will come to them, but don't give them any kind of interaction to their algorithm. Do not. Don't give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and please don't give them a comment, even though it may make you angry. Just ignore them. Don't give them anything. So rest easy, baby girl. We're all so sorry, but we're all so proud of the fight you did put up because there are people who didn't have her underlying conditions who were not, did not, could not fight as hard as she did. So that says a lot about her. And remember, somebody just lost their mother. Somebody just lost a child. Somebody just lost a good friend. So may she rest in sweet peace and rest easy. God bless you, Lady P. We know that we know where you are and we know who you're with. You're in the arms of the Lord. And we appreciate you for your inspiration and for your courage. Hmm. Um, right, the real, I'm just saying. But sometimes it'll come up in your notifications and it'll say something ugly. Ignore it. Don't interact with it. Hi Ursula. Hi Johnny Mac. Hi Dion. Um, who else? Okay, what I wanted to share with you today, and this is very, very important. It has nothing to do with Lady P's passing because I know how the hospitals work under COVID. Family can't really get in there to be with them. But I want to start with a story regarding my Aunt Ruth. Now, what I want you to understand and, you know, realize, I'm going to say some things, and I want you to, when I say remember that, I want you to remember it because it's all connected. And it's basically the fact that, what happened to my aunt should not happen to anyone. And I think that what we experience with our family members when they are ill or in a situation where they're in the hospital, sometimes we rely too much on the medical providers and we kind of turn everything over into their hands. Okay. And we can't do that. But my Aunt Ruth, back in the 1950s, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And they did a radical mastectomy on one breast. And they thought that would be the end of it. They didn't have what they have now, the lumpectomies and that sort of thing. They just took it off, just got rid of it. And in the 70s, her cancer came back. And she also had diabetes. And she had told me that she could go off into a diabetic coma. I know it came a time when she regretted telling me that because if she didn't answer her phone, the sheriffs, if I was not in the same state with her, the sheriffs were at her door making sure she was okay. But the cancer came back. And from the 1950s to the 1990s, she lived that long. Okay, she was determined. But she was found in her bathroom in a diabetic coma. And they took her to the hospital. And she was in there for about 2 weeks on a breathing machine. And they decided, without our permission, that they were going to take her off of it. And I remember praying. And my prayer was answered. Because when they took that breathing machine off, she kept breathing. And she lived a few months later, for several months after that. And we had gotten the people in their hometown in Texas to hold a bed for her so she could go there and be taken good care of. I remember the lady who was one of the attorneys in that small town who said, we always take care of our people. We want them to come home. So they held a bed for her. But what they did was they moved her to a charity hospital after, in fact, the doctor himself said when she kept breathing, he said, this is a miracle. I said, yeah, he's a miracle God. But they took her to this charity hospital. And it was kind of a strange situation because my mother was there with her every day. She flew out there to be with her, and she was there every single day with her. Now, what I found, things that happened with that, because sometimes you learn things through trial and error. I wish I had known what I know now back then, but what happened with her helped me to learn. So my mother said one day she just came out of the coma, not completely, just out, and she says, where's Ray? And then she went back into the coma. Later, I would find out what that actually meant, because later I found out what was really going on. And one of the things that happened after she died, she died and she left my son everything, house and everything. And he wasn't even 20 years old and he was in college. And so I stayed on there to run the estate. So one day, a bill comes from that hospital that she was in, and it was like 30 grand. Okay. And I was really like, you know how you want to go through a bill and nitpick because she was in a coma. I said, how are they going to charge us for mouthwash? I was just nitpicking going through it. And then I saw something that absolutely stunned me. They were feeding her intravenously, but 30 days before she passed away, they had stopped feeding her. They didn't ask us as her family, they didn't tell us as her family that they did that. So I went to the hospital, and because my son was the executor and I had the his authority to act on his behalf in the estate, um, basically, I got the records, the court records, not the court records, but the medical records. And I saw something else that stunned me. Now, what you need to know is that my aunt in the 1940s, remember this now, for I think 3/4 of a year, she worked for a defense plant during the war. Please remember that. And the reason they transferred her was because she didn't have any kind of insurance. And so I filed for SSI for her because she couldn't get Social Security. And you know why? She was missing 3/4. Those 3/4 that she worked for the defense plant, serving her country, she could not get Social Security. So suffice it to say, you know, um, we won the appeal. But let me tell you what I saw in those medical records. Because at first she was denied, and like I said, I had to appeal. At first she was denied. And then I looked at the medical record, the date she was denied, and the first entry said, patient will not receive SSI. And what I saw underneath that actually simultaneously broke my heart and pissed me off. The doctor had written right underneath that, withdraw all support. And my mother was sitting there. She didn't know what was in those bags that they were putting up. So I told them I like copies of certain pages, and they gave me the copies. And I spoke with the attorney who was handling the estate, and he said, "Well, just ask him what he wants to do." So, I didn't tell him what I had learned, but I called my son, and he said, "I said, and they want to pay for the house. They want to pay, and the attorney says we should sell the house." And he said, "Tell them not one dime." And I agreed. So I called the attorney and I said, "You know what? I got some papers here or copies of stuff. And you tell that hospital that we as her family say," he said not one dime. And I'm saying, when they figure out a way to bring her back to life and feed her, then we can talk about a bill. So essentially, they just took her life. They just let her go. So I went to the licensing people, the people who license them in that state in Texas, and I filed a complaint. And I showed her the documents I had, and they did their own investigation. And when she finally got back to me, she said, "I have got to tell you what they did was wrong. Because not only did they not feed her, she was a brittle diabetic. And a brittle diabetic is someone who has to take shots every day. And she had to take insulin shots for years, give them to herself. I couldn't look at it. I couldn't do it. But she says, not only were they not feeding her, they were giving her sugar in those little bags up there. There was sugar in there. They were trying to make her die. And my mother sat there, you know, not knowing that those bags were actually taking her life. And then I realized when she jumped up and said, "Where's Ray?" I was like, she knew what they were doing. They were doing something wrong. And she knew if I'd been there, I would have said, "Wait a minute, hold up, what's going on?" But I was in another state. But I was on, regularly on the phone with my mom every day. And so that's what happened. And, they got in a lot of trouble. And I think I tried to get an attorney. Yeah, I did. And every attorney that I contacted, and finally one just told me, he said, "You're not going to get an attorney here." He says, "Because if we get sick, they have to take care of us." And they wouldn't file it. So it was like, okay. And then I thought about it. I was going to go to one of the bigger cities and get an attorney. And then I thought about it and I said, but any price that I put upon it, that would be putting a price upon her life. And she was priceless to me. And so I said, there's no way that they can pay me. There's no amount that I could come up with. And so I just let it go. And what I want you all to understand as family members, you have the right to look over their shoulders, look in those bags and say, what's in there? What is that? Write it down and Google it or whatever you have to do. But you have to pay attention to what's going on with your family member because you're all they've got. Now with COVID, it's different, but you can get those tablets and make them give her one, have one for her, have them scan the room, scan the medication, whatever you have to do to be hands-on. That's what you have to do. And that's why I became so vigilant when it came to my family. When my mother would have to go to the hospital, my son said, she said to him one time when she was in the hospital here, she said, "Here comes trouble." And she was right because they had her in the hallway. I said, "Why you got my mother laying in the hall in a gurney in the hallway? Why isn't she in the room?" You have to be vigilant. And you have to look out for them. Now, the other thing is when my stepmom got into hospice, she was in California. I was here in Arizona. But my brothers and, my sister and everyone, they were letting me know what was going. Those people didn't like me in that hospice and I didn't like them because I told them, I said, "You're not going to throw her away. I'm not going to allow it." They got so tired of me. One of them said, um, we're not going to answer your questions. I said, "No, you don't have to answer anything. You just have to listen because you will be answering questions to the state of California." And I did file a complaint with the licensing department. And I learned a great deal. And I want to share that with you all. If you have a family member in hospice, remember, hospice is a federal program. And you can change your hospice provider at any time you want to. And you have to watch them just like you watch the people in the hospital. And I saw what they were trying to do, because they decide a lot of times that a Black life, not just, out on the streets, a Black life, an elderly Black life doesn't matter. Okay? They make that decision themselves and they do less. And so, hospice is a money-based business. They get grants and funding and everything else. And some of them just want the funding. They wouldn't even, they were trying to keep her from getting her medication and everything. And they got investigated. But we got a new hospice provider, and they were so much better. And that added about a year to her life. So you have to be so observant and so careful about what your family may be going through. Don't let them throw your family away. And especially don't let them do what they did to my aunt. Because honestly, I've never gotten over that. I still get angry about it. But sometimes you learn things the hard way. And I learned that lesson the hard way. And that's why when I tell you all, when I said this, how to look out for your family members, you have to watch what everybody's doing. You don't know what's in somebody's heart. It's kind of like, how dare they not stop feeding her for a month? And then to give her sugar, that's why she was having seizures. And it was a skilled nursing floor of that hospital. And that's why she was having seizures. They were giving her sugar. It's almost like they were saying, let's get rid of this one. And my mother could not believe that she was sitting right there and they were doing that. So what you need to do is understand that you do as a family member. Don't be intimidated. Ask what's going on. Ask what they're doing. It's just like with COVID. Okay, sometimes they want to intubate, and a lot of times intubation, I call it cutting your throat because they have to cut your throat for that invasive intubation. But they didn't do that with any of the politicians. But usually, they have to make an incision and then intubate and put that in there. And I tell people, I'm not going there for them to cut my throat. I'm not giving nobody permission to cut my throat, because a lot of people, when they get intubated, a lot of times they don't make it. It's the ones who are not intubated that usually make it and usually recover. So you have to be aware of all of these things. When you have a family member with an illness, please, if they have any kind of reaction to it, write it down, contact the doctor, and say, look, they're having a whatever kind of reaction you see. You let the doctor know, and keep a list of any medications that they're allergic to or that they can't take, because you will have to be their champion, their warrior, their comforter. You'll have to be all of that for them. Don't let what happened to my Aunt Ruth happen to your family member, because that is absolutely the worst feeling, to know that you wish you had known. Ask yourself over and over again, why didn't I know? Well, I couldn't have known because they didn't tell us. And by the way, when I said what I said to that attorney, we never got another bill, because they know what the hell they did, and they know the licensing people, knew what they did. And in fact, the licensing people, their investigators marched through those hallways of that skilled nursing floor. And she was so mad. She said she almost broke her pen or pencil, whatever it was, just tapping on the desk. You don't give a brittle diabetic sugar. What the hell was going on there? And she said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I cried again for my aunt. She didn't deserve that. This was a woman who worked all of her life. She worked as a kid. They would pick cotton and that sort of stuff. And she went on to college. She got a master's degree in teaching. So she was a teacher. She worked for the defense plant. She worked all of her life. And yet, this happened to her. And that was so unfair. And life is not fair. Bad things happen to good people. But as a family member, if we know what to look for, we can be right. The real, I'm just saying, their advocates. We can be their advocates. We can help them. We can look out for them. And that's our responsibility, especially if they're very sick and very ill. I remember when my mom got real sick one time, another time, and I actually slept in ICU in the room with her because after what happened to my aunt, I'm meant to be there all the time. And I think as family, we culturally don't usually send our family away somewhere. And we didn't do that with my mom either. And I think that I remember when my aunt Ruth died, I went to pick up. I drove to where my son was in college at that time, not here in Arizona, and he was playing tennis because he was on the college tennis team. And I waited until practice was over instead of saying, "Come here now." And I just waited because I knew that that would rock his world at the time because my aunt didn't have any kids, and she felt like, almost like that he was her son. And so, breaking the news to him and knowing that everything was going to be, all the ball was going to be in his court insofar as the estate and everything, um, I knew it'd be a lot on him. But I also knew it'd be a lot on my mother as well because um, that was her last sibling. There were six of them altogether. And so when you lose someone like that under those circumstances, you don't get over it. Right, the real, I'm just saying. Right. Yeah, a lot of people don't know what to look for. But you can ask questions, hon. I know the difference between sugar and food. Okay. If I say, "What is this?" and they say sugar, and I said, "Where'd the food go?" or something like that. You have to really fight for your family, no matter how inept or inadequate you may feel. Do the best you can, because if you find out later that you weren't paying attention, first of all, that's hard for you to be able to live with. And if you live with, you just don't get over it. But if you've done everything that you can think of and that you know to do, then you're good. So that's the information I wanted to share with you all. And that's one of the reasons why, um, I was telling in another video I did, Catch Josie and some other people, finding your purpose. What is your purpose? Because a lot of times we go through things and it's still within us. Now, right now, I continue to be and will continue to be because my youngest son passed away. And I'll be honest with you guys, that's a feeling, that's something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, honestly and truthfully. But I'm part of a support system for parents who've lost a child. Um, People who have lost, infants, young children. I know one lady, she lost a son to cancer at age 7. And I have other people I know who've lost a child. Any age that you lose a child, it hurts. And the support system that I'm a part of, what we do is listen. Sometimes people don't want you to talk. They just want to talk. Sometimes they just want you to listen to them cry or understand what they're going through. And when I went through it, that's what people did for me. And who am I not to provide that same kind of outreach to others when I know how well it worked for me. So sometimes we go through things, and if we can take something out of it and give back, then that too is something that's the good that came out of the sad. So, anyway, you all, I've had a beautiful night's rest and I got things to do today. And I hope you guys have a beautiful Saturday and enjoy it and enjoy your family and everyone else and take care of yourselves as well and enjoy your family. But also, when they get sick, act like a warrior, a guard, whatever you want to call it, advocate, be right there. Even if you don't know what you're talking about, ask questions, please. So, anyway, have a beautiful day. Enjoy your day. And again, rest in peace, Lady P. We're proud of the fight you put up, um, the battle that you fought, and we admire you even more for it. And for those who didn't hear me earlier, all those negative people that are may say negative things, you may get something temporarily out of giving it a thumbs down. But if you don't interact at all, no thumbs down, no thumbs up, no watching it, nothing, then you're not giving them what they want. Because even if you do a thumbs down, it's still interaction. And so just ignore it and say a sweet prayer for that sweet lady. And I'm just so sorry that she's gone. I really am. I was just praying that she would come pull through and have a beautiful testimony for her. But like I said before, God said, you've suffered enough. It's time to come on home. And he knows what he's doing. We don't know what kind of pain she was in. We don't know what kind of suffering she's in. But just remember, somebody did lose a mother. Somebody did lose a child. Somebody did lose a friend. So pray for them as well. Have a beautiful day, everyone.